Hello everyone, this is Blender Guppy. Welcome to the Sort Asset add-on video tutorial. So a brief history before we start. I made this add-on so I can quickly arrange any 3D model sets or packs I made into a grid and also mark them as assets for the asset browser. This was first used in the sci-fi cylinder pack that is in my store. I just added in the batch export later as a quick way for me to export objects that I need to upload to Patreon. So as you can surmise, this add-on is more personal, but I'm adding this to the bundle so you can also use it for the particular purposes that I'm just mentioned. If you are a seller like me or operate Patreon giving away 3D scenes and models, this will really be helpful to you because it can make your product or scene more organized. Once you've installed the add-on, you can find it in the W Specials menu in object mode by pressing the W hotkey. Now let's go over to each operator and see what each of the redo property does. First up, the grid array operator. This will arrange the selected meshes into a grid in the XY axis. This needs 2 or more selection in order for it to work. I'm going to use these 10 cubes that has increments in heights to demonstrate the add-on. The first property is the sort method. You can arrange the objects using the options such as active, name, smallest, biggest, and random. The active option will start the grid array from the position of the active object. These objects are arranged in the z plane of the active object, and the grid pattern will be done in the xy axis. After the active object, the rest of the objects in the array will follow the naming convention for arrangement or will be in alphabetical order. So when I use cube 003, for example, the second one in the sequence will be cube and the next one will be cube 001 and so forth. Using the name option, we'll arrange the object alphabetically. The first object in the arrangement will be placed in the active object's position. So even though I have the cube 002 as the active object selected, it will be placed correctly in order, and in its place will be the first one in the alphabetical order according to name, which is in this scene is the cube. The smallest option will arrange the objects based off their dimensions and with the smallest object as the first in the arrangement with the largest at the last. Again, the position of the first object will be at the active selection. The biggest option will do the inverse of the smallest and put the largest object at the first slot with the smallest at the last based off their dimension. And finally, we have random. Each individual object's placement will be randomized in the grid using a seed property value that will be exposed once you have selected this option. Next, we have the offset properties, X and Y. This setting simply increases the offset or margin between each object in the XY axis. Next is the step property, which determines the number of objects you can have in each row and column of the grid. Depending on the orientation, increasing the steps will stack the objects into rows until you get only one single row, and decreasing the steps will stack the objects more into columns until all of them are packed in a single column. It's a simple property to arrange your models into a grid, so if you have 10 objects and use 5 steps like this example, you will have 2 rows and 5 columns. Let's move on to location. This is used to set the direction of the grid array in the x and y axis. When using the negative x and positive y, for example, and playing around with the step values, you can see the grid rows and columns go to those axis directions. Positive x and positive y, and the rest. Now let's discuss the mark as asset operator. This marks the selected objects as assets, so you can use the asset browser to drag and drop these objects to the 3D viewport inside a new scene. The first property is the sort method. This works the same way as from the grid array operator, only it doesn't erase the objects into a grid but mainly follows the convention or sequence to create a new name for the objects. This works better if you use grid array first, then use the same sort method in the mark as asset operator. The next property is the name, and this is where you put the new name for the objects. If you leave it blank, then the name should stay the same and the objects will just be marked as assets. Next is the description, where you can put a brief info on your 3D models. Then we have the author, where you can put your name as the one who made the objects or others. And the tag, where you can put multiple entries separated by a comma, which will make it faster for you to filter or search for these objects in the asset browser. Let's try writing box and cube and activate the operator. When we use the asset browser and search using the tags, you can see that it makes it faster to search for these objects. Next, we have clear tags toggle. It simply clears the tags of the selected objects if you had set tags to it before using the mark as asset operator. And only rename will only rename the objects using the sort method for sequence and not mark them as assets, thereby ignoring the description, author, and tag properties. And finally, we have the batch export operator, which exports all the selected objects in the object FBX or STL format. These files are put into a folder which will have the same name as the blend file or scene, but you have to save it first so it won't give you an error, and for the script to know which directory to put the files in. The export folder with the models will be placed in the same location as the blend file is in. If everything is the same when exporting again, the files will not be duplicated, instead will be overwritten. This is really convenient if you want to pass the object files along with an asset browser prepared blend file, or just save the models as object files for future use. And that is it for the sort asset add-on, which is the newest member of the creative bundle, along with random flow, creative flow, and track lights. If you have any questions, use the comment section below or the links in the description. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.